Welcome, Lei,
Yeah.
and welcome to the audience. We are here to talk about 5G and indoor mobile systems. And with me, I have Li
Yep.
Shi, and you are from Analysys Mason.
Yes, that's
Welcome.
right. Thank you.
5G. Why should we care about 5G indoors?
Well, let's take an example. So imagine you are going to grab a lunch, walking on the street, watching an NBA final on your iPhone 14 Pro or Samsung Galaxy in 4K resolution. Very nice, right? And then suddenly you notice there is a pause, and after a few seconds it's come back, but then everything looks pixelated and very blurry. And this is the moment you realize, oh, my 5G logo is gone now. It's just a 3G. And it's the last quarter or a few seconds left. I don't have time to search what is public Wi-Fi here is available, because now I'm actually inside food court of this shopping mall, and I don't want to log in and take a break from the game. So that's is what you're living with when you have no 5G indoor coverage. It's maybe not the most important use cases, but I think it's everybody can relate to this kind of frustration you have.
Poor indoor
Exactly.
mobile coverage.
Yes.
Yeah, understand.
And I think it's become more frustrating is also because many of us are start to getting used to this high quality, high reliability connections when we are working outdoor, as the 5G coverage in outdoor is expanding all the time, right? And but when it comes indoor, we're still relying, as you said, Wi-Fi, or in some cases we have some actually solutions that was built in 4G or even 3G era for indoor. But I would say none of them actually are as good as or can replicate the real 5G experience that you are getting more and more used to in outside the building.
Yeah, I heard statistics from Ericsson that 80% of the traffic inside mobile systems actually are coming
Yes,
from
exactly.
indoor
Yeah.
Traffic, or people who are indoor, which is
Quite significant. Yes.
yeah, significant. But the solutions then that you compare it, what's different with them, or how does this compare?
If we start with the cellular solution, the past generation 4G and 3G, they were built to provide the basic indoor coverage, but
Like voice call.
mostly for voice call, I would say, and some data traffic. But none of these, or most of the solution based on sort of distributed antenna system that was built before, cannot be physically upgraded to support real 5G, which is to a large extent is relying on this 3.5 gigahertz band, and most of those infrastructure cannot support this band. Therefore, many operators are now relying on sort of outside-in coverage approach. Basically, you have an outdoor 5G base station, and you expect the signal to somehow get through the walls and windows to get to the user inside the building. But it doesn't really work so well with 5G because, again, this 3.5 gigahertz, you have very high loss when you start to have the signal penetration to the building inside the building. So yeah,
and I guess it gets even worse if you have very good buildings,
exactly,
with isolated windows and metallic sheets on the windows.
That's why you start revert back to 3G that was built here before.
Yeah, and GPRS world.
Yes.
But what about Wi-Fi then? You mentioned the old mobile systems, but what about Wi-Fi?
Yeah, I would say Wi-Fi, as you say, it's everywhere in most buildings. But how many of us actually take the effort to log into them, right? Because
I'm too old.
When you come to the building, there's maybe public Wi-Fi. There may be several. Then I need to say which one is reliable. I have to guess, and then have to maybe sign up and log in. It's just too much effort compared to a cellular solution, which is much more seamless. And I think beyond that, I could also argue that maybe more from a future thing, that is on the reliability aspect. Yes, Wi-Fi 6 is here. It's very capable, but it is still using this unlicensed spectrum. In most use cases, it's fine, but still in the most demanding scenario where reliability is a key, then you really need a dedicated spectrum that comes with a cellular solution to be completely confident that would work all the time.
I read an article in Forbes the other day where the headline is, if you want to be really secure, never log into public Wi-Fi.
Probably, yes.
And maybe security is one of the reasons I don't log in anymore. I feel it's a bit unsafe.
Yes.
But building owners, then the mall owners and the shop owners and the office owners, what do they think about 5G?
I think we see more and more building owners have become very vocal about putting demands on sort of good indoor coverage, cellular coverage qualities. And now, of course, that's mostly about having a 5G infrastructure inside the building. I think they see that more of them are seeing the 5G network or 5G infrastructure inside building as a integral part of this building infrastructure, just like water and electricity. There's no difference. And in Sweden, we have this building owner organization that has recently published a report that have set up a very sort of clear requirement on predictable coverage, predictable capacity and speed from a cellular coverage inside the building. And they also put it very clearly that they wanted to have all this provided through a unified network that would give access to most, if not all, the operators, rather than have a duplication of multiple networks inside the building.
And operators, I guess that they are running to build these networks now, or if not, why are they not happening?
I think, as far as operators concerned, they still see the indoor coverage more like a cost or issue that they have to address if and only if when some of their enterprise customers start to complain, oh, I don't have a coverage in this building.
It's a problem.
It's a problem.
Fix. Okay.
Exactly. So it's a negative experience. It's not really seen as a business opportunity that they will proactively go to address. So that means they don't have a dedicated process organization that is catered for building indoor network. I think it's understandable for their point of view as well, because in many cases they have to, when they start to look into building trying to deploy indoor coverage, they have a difficult process to talk to the building owner to negotiate. Okay, who would pay for the network or for the maintenance, and also to discuss after I have as operator deploy a network. How should I give access to the other operators to come to share the access? Because the building owner doesn't want to have another one to build another network in the same building. So all this become a lot of hassle for the operators to justify the efforts, the investment required to do it.
Talking about the investment, is that a concern for operators in this area?
Absolutely. That's probably an even bigger issue, you could say, because we should look at the operator, at least in Europe, has faced sort of a revenue decline for decades. And many of them has had a lot of pressure on the share price. And what they do is to keep the high dividend to sort of keep the share price float. But that also put a lot of sort of constraints on how much capex they can spend, because a lot of this free cash flow has to be reserved for the dividend. And whatever is remaining for that capex has to be prioritized now for the outdoor 5G coverage build out, because that's where they see most of the competition is doing. So they have to sort of follow suit. So there's not that much money left for the indoor build out, unfortunately.
So how expensive is indoor? I mean, if we compare with something.
Yes, I think indoor is relatively more expensive than outdoor in terms of if you look at how much area it can cover per dollar spent or per euro spent. So of course, from an operator point of view, if you have more constraint on your capex, of course you prioritize for outdoor build out, where you can get much bigger area covered.
More square meters for the buck.
Exactly. And I haven't done the math for the outdoor, but if we look at the indoor, our estimation is around 5 to 8 euros per square meters for the cost of building a network and then running a network for approximately 5 years for a real 5G solution. And that means if we look at the Western Europe market, to cover all the commercial buildings in this market, that would cost around 30 to 15 billion euros. And even if we just look at the sort of the retail or offices buildings, that's still around 12 to 20 billion euros.
So decent amount of cash.
Quite a lot of cash if you put things into context. Looking at wireless, the total wireless capex operator have in Western Europe is around 30 billion euros per year. So, but I think neutral hosts like you is of course a main type of players come in, but I think we should also mention there are other type of players saying that indoor coverage is slightly different angle. I think it's worth mentioning like Cisco or HPE, or even hyperscaler and like Amazon or Microsoft they also have started to partner with 5G solution providers.
Mm.
And of course, they see the indoor coverage from a slightly different angle, more from the enterprise network perspective, see this as extension of the Wi-Fi network or extension of the public or edge cloud offering. But I think if we come back to helping the operator to reach indoor to their regular customers, I would say still neutral host probably is the most relevant option.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that is really interesting. Lei. So how do you think that neutral hosts can add value to operators in this market?
I think in general there are three ways. The first one is that you bring the investment, you remove the upfront investment barrier for the operators to actually kickstart the thing. The second way is you unburden the process hurdle that the operator has to face when they try to discuss with the building owner and try to roll out and maintain the indoor network. And also lastly, you as a neutral host, I think by definition, you are facilitating the network sharing, which is a necessity for actually building indoor network.
That sounds like three important things. So can you elaborate a bit more on those three things?
On the first point, I think new players like you guys are backed with investment that's come from outside the traditional telecom space. So you have your own capex to build up the network, to buy the equipment and actually deploy the network. So you don't have to rely or waiting for the operators to fund this. You can build it where you see there is opportunity or there is interest from the building owners. And of course, eventually you have to be paid for investment, but you get that through by charging either the operator or the building owners for utilizing this infrastructure as OPEX, right? And we also see that in many cases now it's become more common for the building owner to be willing to pay for this network through kind of OPEX model as well. And in that case, then it's almost free for the operators to actually connect to the infrastructure. Of course, they still have to connect the backhaul and do some process changes to actually make this work. But it's much lower barrier than before.
That's for sure.
Then on the second point about the sort of the process side is that I think many neutral hosts that comes in with either a very good understanding of the rest of the market that can identify more easily where the interests are, and you have a better conversation with the building owners, and also usually they have a dedicated organization for deploying and operating the indoor network either by themselves or through a dedicated partner, and that all that kind of streamlines the whole process, and the operators doesn't have to face all these difficult challenges that they are not really sort of built up for. I think those are very two important contributions to this ecosystem.
The shared infrastructure part.
Yes.
That sounds, we talked about the money and the overlay and so on. So that sounds important. How do you see that aspect?
I think, yes, the shared infrastructure is a key because building owners are very hesitant to have multiple duplication networking inside the building. Not only for the cost, but also for security, for energy efficiency, and so on. So there are many reasons that why this strong requirement they need a unified infrastructure. That's very clear. And I think for operators, it will be difficult for them to be this completely neutral player to set up a shared network. There are lots of hurdles they have to overcome. But as a neutral player, they are set up to do this from the beginning. And I think by having a shared infrastructure, it brings a lot of cost-saving benefits as well. I mean, of course, I should say that this is nothing new. Indoor network has been shared before, but previously it had mostly been done through this digital antenna system, DAS system, in passive DAS. And
big coax cables.
Exactly. But in those cases that the operators still have to bring in their own base station, basically the baseband and radio units into the building. And that means only about 20 to 40% of the actual total cost of the indoor network is being shared. But with the new technology, the advancement in small cells, for example, you can actually now have a multi-operator small cell solution for the whole building, catering to 5G use cases. And that means the operator can even share the baseband, the radio, and all the way for the distributed.
So sharing more or less 100% of the indoor
if not 190% of the total cost. So that's a much bigger improvement in cost saving benefits from having a shared infrastructure than before. So that's an even stronger argument. I also, for another argument, I saw a report from, I think it was Ericsson, who compared
modern small cell deployment versus a not so modern deployment, and there was a 70% energy saving.
No, that's quite substantial.
So if we look at the challenge we have in Europe and in the world today, I think that is an added benefit as well.
Absolutely.
To go modern. So all of this sounds super exciting, and I'm happy to be on this journey, and it sounds like an interesting journey to come. So why should operators care here now? I mean, what should they do?
I think, I believe the neutral host will be the logical next step, and the operator should really start working close with the neutral host players to actually kickstart the indoor deployment. But I think a real wake-up call for them would be the moment when more and more enterprise customers start to ask, not just complaining about the lack of coverage, but start to demand for better connectivity, to ask for experience that are similar to what they are expecting from an outdoor 5G.
Some more services rather than complaints.
No, exactly. And I think that's also make the operator would realize there could be more opportunities for them to provide through this indoor connectivity, more B2B solutions that will not be possible before without this indoor solution. And I think lastly, I would say, even if they are willing to work with neutral host eventually, it will be a process for the operator and neutral host to actually learn how to work together seamlessly, to manage the operation of the network and how to handle the sort of coverage island between your indoor network and outdoor macro coverage. All this will take time. So in my mind, it's better to sort of start the journey early, stay ahead of the learning curve rather than react too late.
Lei, I can actually give them a free kind of tip here. I met a big company yesterday, a large company, who are looking into more or less swapping out Wi-Fi in their office for mobile services only. And the reason they're looking at it at all was that people are fewer and fewer hours in the office. And they needed a solution for IT security where they can be everywhere and be secure everywhere. And they felt that mobility might be the way. And in that case, operators can actually then come into the offices and sell new things. Things they are not selling today.
Absolutely.
So that's an opportunity. Super thanks. This was very interesting. I hope that the audience felt it the same. And if the audience wants to know more about this, where should they go and look?
Yes, so I think lots of things we discussed here are actually in a white paper we published recently. And I think we can share a link to that white paper that was hosted on Analysys Mason website.
I'll put it into the comments on this video. So thank you again very much.
Thank you.
See you soon again.